Was that Buddy, or was that I just saw? Was it Slim Jim Phantom or Brian Setzer or somebody bought Buddy Holly's guitar, and there's a video of them
Whoa.
playing. I think That'll Be the Day on the guitar
On his
on
Fender
his
Stratocaster.
yeah on his actual guitar. So
That's funny because Brian Seltzer endorses Gretsch guitars, and that is most definitely a Fender that he played. He,
well, maybe yeah, and maybe it's not Brian Setzer, it's somebody else,
well,
but
it could be
uh,
somebody who wants that.
but
Paul
it
McCartney
was
brought
definitely
Bill.
something I saw on while I was perusing and carousing YouTube, as I often do, to find little nuggets of information that I could use here. Good morning, Michael Knight. How are you?
I'm well, New York Vinnie. It's still raining here in LA. I was going to bring this up today. El Nino and La Nina. No one could ever figure out which one we were experiencing. If it rained, they said it was one. If it didn't rain, they said it was the other. But no one could ever remember which was which. Now they've improved the nomenclature. We don't have La Nina and El Nino anymore. We have a uh, geopolitical weather river that flows from places unknown. It could be the Russians. We don't know. It could be Slovakia. No one can tell you where the balloons come from or where this weather is coming from. But I'm sure you've been getting another couple feet of snow as a result of it. The
Uh,
atmospheric river.
we're actually warm, and there's scattered patches of sunshine in the sky. I can actually look out the window and see blue sky.
Are you forecasting a Bill Rice sunbreak?
I'm thinking a sunbreak may happen. Now, whatever happened, they've gone over, as you say, they've gone over to this atmospheric river, which I don't particularly like because that means we're all at the bottom of the river, which
Which is not a good place to start life.
is not conducive to life. I liked bombogenesis.
Okay,
That was the one that I really liked. A
that sounds like
bombogenesis.
that sounds at least like it has a horn section.
Yeah, it sounds like something. It sounds like it's a car or a European clown or Phil Collins. I don't
Wait,
know, but
please, not a European clown.
I
I,
think it is a Euro. I think Bombo Genesis is an Italian clown.
you mean they wear the pajamas with the little puff balls on them and the peaked hat and they pretend to be heretics? Yes,
Yeah, Topolino. Hello, Topolino. Well, actually, Topolino is Italian for Mickey Mouse.
it's a good place to start. Better than at the bottom of an atmospheric river.
Yeah, I would rather start with Mickey Mouse than an atmospheric river, but I like that Bombo Genesis. I thought that was
The reason European clowns don't tour Slovakia is they don't like rings and tents in Slovakia. It reminds them of the old bad times.
well, yeah.
Don't get
I
into a
mean,
building that's got a ring in the middle. It's not a good sign.
yeah. It's like it always gets. I always wonder about people who say the good old days,
Oh,
and then you hear them describe the good old days as having to wrap themselves in newspaper to go to school because it was so cold, having to walk 2 miles to go to school, which I always said to my dad, well, but Pop, your school was around the block from the house. Why did you walk 2 miles? Thank you, Rodney Dangerfield.
wanted to stretch his legs.
I wanted to be ready for track, I guess. But yeah, and then we always hear about the good old days in the 50s. And yeah, it was the 40s was World War II. I mean, I don't know how that could have been a good old day when all them people were coming home in boxes or with their legs blown off.
The good old days from the Eisenhower years were fabulous if you looked like Dwight Eisenhower. If you didn't look like Dwight Eisenhower, for instance, if you look more like Buddy Holly with that guitar,
Right.
you were on the edge of society that barely acknowledged your existence. If you were gay, if you were black, if you were Mexican American, if you were Asian, if you were anything but Eisenhower white, the 1950s probably do not remind you of the good old days. They remind you of what could happen to you just by sticking your head out the door.
Exactly. If you were Emmett Till, I don't think the good old days would have been in the 50s or the 60s for that matter. at least the first part of the '60s and probably the entire '60s, because just because you passed a law that says a black man can walk into a store, it doesn't mean that,
That
that
there's
there's
not
going
a,
to be
that
a
there's not.
welcoming committee at the front door for him.
If you remember what they used in the South during the lunch breaks at uh, in Birmingham, they have the governor. Who's the governor?
What in the '60s,
Yeah,
Alabama was George Wallace.
George Wallace, but there was another one after him. There was a restaurant owner, and he would meet the
Oh,
he would
Lester
meet
Maddox, he was Georgia.
yeah he would meet the demonstrators with an axe handle, if you recall.
He was a piece of work, Lester Maddox. I mean, in those days, they were white supremacists, and they made no bones about it. I mean, they didn't like sit around and say, "Well, we aren't white supremacists." No, they said, let them darkies come to the front door, and
I'll
we'll
meet him right
show them.
there. Yeah,
We'll
it's
show them.
and there will be no retribution. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. No one's going to stop me. No one's going to arrest me. No one's going to charge me with anything. You can have it on film. It won't make any difference. You can record it with your phone if anyone had a phone in 1962. I'm here with an axe handle. It's my restaurant. I'll decide who I beat when they come in this door.
Well, and you had police that were on their side. I mean, if you were a black guy driving down south and getting stopped, you probably had as much a chance as getting hung from a tree as you did getting out of there alive.
And there were a lot of trees in the South that were specifically dedicated to that use. They had been used before, and they would like to use them again.
Yeah,
The
so the
the
good
good old
old
days.
days aren't always as good as people want to make them out to be.
You
I
know
mean, I
what that is,
realized
Vinny?
that there was good stuff that happened in those days, but we all, people always talk about, well, I want to go back to the way America was. Well, when you look at how America was, it wasn't all that pretty. Now, maybe you lived in New York and you didn't see it, but even if you lived in New York, you saw that stuff, or Los Angeles, or San Francisco, or certainly up here, where Oregon, where there's probably more Klan chapters than there are in many places. Um, that stuff still went on.
Yakima was the king of the clan for a while.
I wish the people would just come out and say, well, we wanted to go back to when we didn't have to deal with the black people
When we
or
had
the,
when,
or
when
the, the
we could treat them
Spanish
as
people.
we could treat them as we wished.
Right, exactly. That's what I think a lot of when they say the good old days. I look back and I think, yeah, there was some great times, but those days overall were a little whacked out.
And in my memory, because I lived through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and all those other 80s, 90s, and I think I'm still alive. The long term takeaway from that, from my life, was that the good times and the movements and the social upheaval and the changes that happened to everyday life did not come as a result of anybody remembering or practicing the good old days. It came from guys like Jack Kerouac. It came from guys like Bill Graham. It came from guys like Carlos Santana. It came from the streets. It came from social change. How could you say to someone in 1955, hang on, in a couple of years, you're going to be wearing bell bottoms, long hair, and a flowery belt? And it wouldn't make any
Probably
sense.
look at you a little whacked out.
It wouldn't make any sense. There'd be no way to compare it to anything. It's why would I do that? Why would I look like that? Why would I change my pants, my hair, and my outlook?
But
Well, it happened.
many times when there is social change, Michael, does it make sense? I mean, it does at the time. Now, when you look back at it, it does make sense.
Right.
But when you're living through it, I mean, we talk about the great times of the '60s, but I don't know that the hippies made a lot of sense when, if you weren't a hippie, certainly it didn't make a lot of sense to you. There were a bunch of long-haired guys that didn't take a bath, or so America would have you believe.
That was the write-off. Yeah, they were. You can't tell a boy from a girl. But
Yeah, all of that, which
it's the type of observation you would make from the seat of a tractor, but not an accurate one. And it didn't help to understand that people who dressed and thought that way and listened to that music and had accumulated all the wonderful, exciting elements of the 60s. It wouldn't make any sense to them to look into that future and say, I want to be a part of that. What you didn't want to be a part of was the opposition to that. You didn't want to be a square. You didn't want to be conservative. You didn't want to be a reactionary. And the lines didn't have to be drawn. All you had to do was walk into the room and you knew where you were going to spend your party time.
Yeah.
You knew who you were going to talk to. You knew who had similar thoughts. Not fully in agreement with everything you had to say. That wasn't the point. But they understood. You didn't have to explain evolution to them. You didn't have to explain there was a secret language of understanding that developed, and it was kind of beautiful to witness when just a look would give you entry into a certain state of mind.
A look and a little sugar cube, actually.
And it didn't change that much year by year, but between the 10 years of Eisenhower and Kennedy, it had changed a great deal. And by the time we got to Lyndon Johnson, a way of measuring time by presidents, the society had changed dramatically. And the reaction to the idea that you and I were hippies and we were freer than our other citizens kind of rubbed them the wrong way. Why should the hippie get to be so free? How come we aren't free? And our freedom would, of course, include making sure the hippie is not as free as we are.
Right.
We want to be on top this time when it comes to the freedom thing. We want to be in charge of the next step the society takes. And that's why we have to have a war on everything we're against. We're going to have a war on drugs and a war on poverty and a war on violence.
We haven't
put together that war on guns, have we, Vinnie?
Well, yeah, we haven't gotten that quite yet. That together quite yet. The war on guns, because the war for guns seems to be because they got the guns. So I mean,
as Jim Morrison would say, they've got the guns, but we've got the numbers.
Yeah, it's yeah. I watched Biden's speech yesterday down in Monterey Park, and I don't know. I don't know that any of these things. I mean, here's the problem: that people don't report these things when they see some whack job, standing out on his on his porch cleaning his gun. Nobody picks up the phone and says, "Well, or even if they do, the cops come by and say, "Well, yeah, he's just cleaning his gun." Until
he uses it. I like it. I like the cop excuse. Until you've committed the crime, there's nothing we can do. Well, why don't you just stand over there and watch me? Because that's exactly what I'm going to do. I haven't committed the crime yet. I'm not warning you in any official dangerous way to stand back. I'm just saying the crime is coming. If you can be patient, I'll get to it.
Make sure. How do you walk the line between the crime is coming and I'm going to commit the crime? You know it and I know it. We all know it, but until I do it.
Well, that's like the song Earl by the Dixie Chicks. Until he violated his stay away order and put her in intensive care, there was nothing anybody could do.
Right.
And nothing, and there was nothing being done by anybody anyway.
Well,
so the girls took action.
Yeah, you have this case up here with this woman that was a podcaster. Did I talk about this on Monday?
No.
Well, a woman, it's a podcaster.
When he says up here, he's in Seattle.
Up here in Seattle, yeah, over in Kirkland actually. Kirkland or Redmond? I think Redmond actually. So she does a podcast on high tech, on how to get a job in high tech, how to get along, and if you work in the high tech industry, of course, there's a gazillion people up here that work in the high tech industry, Microsoft, Amazon,
Sure.
So, anyway, this guy is listening to her. I don't know how he comes upon her podcast. He's a long haul truck driver. But he listens to her voice. He listens to the podcast, and he goes whack. He's in love with this woman.
She's speaking only to me.
She's speaking only to me. He calls her 100 times a day, and he sends her flowers and finds out where all her friends are. Because she goes on a Facebook page and he starts talking to all her friends. This woman's married, and So I guess last Saturday, I guess it got to the point where the woman had to get an order of protection against him. But the police can't find the guy because he's a long haul truck driver.
There's nothing we can do, okay? There's nothing we can do.
If he shows up, call us. Well, guess what?
He
He
showed
showed
up.
up. And he showed up with a gun. And he drove from Texas to Redmond in a red pickup truck, Toyota pickup truck, and decided that he was going to take care of business. If I can't have it, nobody can. Broke into their house. I guess her mother was living with them. She saw him. She took a couple of shots at her or something, but she ran out of the house to a neighbor's house. By the time the neighbor, called the police came. The guy had shot the husband and killed the husband, killed her, and then killed himself.
He could have saved so much mileage and gas costs by just killing himself in Texas. But
Yeah, it would have. I mean,
and I consult killers like this. They call and I give them advice. And my advice always is take care of the business now. Forget about driving to Redmond. It's a waste of gasoline. You've had better things to do with your last day. Watch the Three Stooges and then kill yourself.
right. I mean, they had an order of protection against this guy, but how how are you going to enforce it if we don't know how to find people. We don't want to. I mean, I guess we could find him. Something tells me if she was Bill Gates or something, that they find him. But for an average person, they take the order of protection, they file it in the file cabinet there, and if he shows up, if you see him in Redmond, call us.
And there's a little card on the back of that for the police to say, there's nothing we can do. I'm reading this. Nothing we can do unless he shows up and commits a crime. I just want you to know that we'll be standing by doing nothing because there's nothing we can do until the crime is committed.
So now here's this woman who, is doing nothing but doing a podcast. She's doing what we're doing, basically. Trying to give people advice, trying to make people's lives better by just going on her social media and her channel and saying, well, this, that, boom, boom. I don't know I never heard her podcast, and I had never heard of her before it happened, but it makes you think, what are people thinking when they listen to you? What are people thinking? Is there no way that this guy should have had a gun? I mean, should have he had a gun? If they did a background check on him, did anybody know? Did he tell anybody that he was taking this trip? Usually you go somewhere, you tell somebody, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, he's from Texas, and they give you a gun with breakfast there. You go to Vinnie's.
You do. You go to Luby's Cafe, and there's you go right down the line. You pick up your grits and eggs, your Jimmy Dean sausages, your somewhat burnt toast, your fruit salad.
Is it too much to have bacon with the sausage? Is that too much?
No, you can have whatever you want because they'll charge you for it at the other end. Or maybe breakfast is a pay one price deal.
And because I'm in a hurry because I got to get to Redmond in a couple hours, do they have guns that I can have there at the sausage place?
Go to Nevada, you can buy them on the way. And there's no sales tax.
Good idea. Hell of an idea.
I just, it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm long past the idea that there's going to be no guns in the world. I mean, that's a fool's wish. But good God, shouldn't there be if you get a car, if you want to go buy a car, they run your name in a computer and they can get your whole history. They know everything you ever did in your life in 2 minutes.
And they're not going to sell the car to you if they don't want to.
And if they don't, so isn't there a system? Isn't there a way that if Joe Smith has an order of protection against him, that can be put in a computer, and it go out to all the gun store owners. And so when Joe Smith comes in to buy a gun and shows you his ID, you put it in the thing, and it says, every cop in a cop car can find out if you have a warrant. Why aren't we treating orders of protection, or are we treating orders of protection in the same manner? Or the cops just look at him as, it's somebody that doesn't like their husband. Don't worry, it's a nut job. It's a podcast that she's imagining this.
Well, here in LA, if you have a gun and you're brandishing it in the street and the police come, you've got about 30 seconds, because they're not going to say to one another, well, he hasn't committed a crime. There's nothing we can do. They shoot him in the street. They take him down, and they are not arrested or prosecuted for that killing. It was a good shot. It was a good move. The man was threatening public safety. He had a gun in the middle of the street. He resisted arrest. How long do you think they'd last in LA? I'm telling you that it won't be long. And there's nobody standing outside a bank saying, these guys are going in. I know what they're going to do. But until the crime is committed, you know me, nothing I can do.
Nothing I can do.
Nothing I can do.
I guess that's why you have a law that says if you're brandishing a gun in a metropolitan area,
don't hold out your hope.
Yeah, I guess but New York City had a law like that, and they struck it down.
But I'm just talking. Well, the law can be used to protect or to expose actions by the police. But when it's two cops and one guy in the street at 2 a.m, and the guy's got a gun, there's something they can do, and they don't wait until the crime is committed before they take action.
Well, yeah, if a guy's got a gun and he's brandishing, he's waving it out in the street, I guess the protocol is you ask him to put the gun down, right?
You give him a command. Give him a command.
And if he doesn't, and he's pointing it at you, pointing at people, your next move, I guess, is to get the gun out of his hands.
If you've got a man in the street with a gun who refuses to comply, it ain't going to be pretty. Avert your gaze if you don't want to see this.
That's the thing. You refuse to comply. You got to be a little nuts not to comply. I know if I'm standing in the street and I'm holding a gun, and the cops pull up, and I don't have a death wish. I'm not looking to get myself killed.
That you know about.
That I know about. The first thing I'm doing is I'm putting the gun down. Or I'm holstering it, or I'm doing what they tell me to do. What do you want me to do with the gun? Put it on the hood of the car. Okay.
We've seen enough of the criminal mind in LA. They chase a guy through 4 freeways, pit stop his car, beat him to the ground, handcuff him, and then they say, all right, now get up. And he goes, nah. This is the last thing I'm going to tell you no about, because it's the last thing I got going for me. You want me to get up? I don't want to get up. Nah.
Yeah,
after all we've been through, now it's resisting arrest based on you won't get up. You're dealing with a guy who had quite a day on 4 freeways being chased by 20 cops.
Yeah, but they don't chase him fast. That's the thing. I see these chases. The guy's going 35 miles an hour, and they're chasing him at 35 miles an hour.
It works out in the long run for a safe conclusion to the event.
Yeah, because you can't continue to have these high-speed pursuits in urban areas where you're doing 120 miles an hour through intersections. Somebody's going to get killed. Although, I got to tell you, I saw a chase the other day, and they chased this guy's in a van, and so he's in, I think, probably L.A. City, and he's coming down on this intersection, and there's kids crossing in the intersection. So the woman that's, narrating this for the news, she's, oh my God, the tragedy that's going to happen with those kids. The guy stopped. Let the kids go by.
What am I going to do, hit an innocent kid?
The cops are behind him with the sirens going.
Yeah.
They stop. The kids cross the street. The crossing guard goes like this. And they continue to chase.
Resume speed.
I had to give the guy points for that, man. I mean, I had to, he stopped. He didn't come right up to him. He stopped a safe distance away so that they were, didn't feel like they had to run or anything like that. They're just crossing the street like it's, regular old 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm getting out of school.
I like that story. It tells you something about training paying off in the long run. He somewhere in there, existing next to the worst day of his life, was his memory of how to behave in public. Simple
Yeah.
rules of operating your own vehicle and of getting yourself through life. If he had just remembered that half an hour before, there wouldn't be 20 cops on his tail. But
Yeah,
that's
I mean, I had to give the guy. I almost said, I hope they don't rough this guy up when they get him, because at least he showed the presence of mind, the courtesy, I don't know, the awareness not to run these kids over, not to run through them. His escape from the law was not more important than the safety of these kids crossing the street. Maybe
and of
maybe
course
maybe
he
we
was a
aren't as bad a society as we think.
no, because we invented the freeway chase. It's good entertainment. Usually people don't get hurt. You can see how far your Hyundai can go at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah,
Not that long. Don't run it all afternoon at 100 miles an hour. You will be results may vary, but you'll be disappointed in the end.
yeah. In the end, you're going to have a Hyundai with a blown engine.
Yep.
But your chances are you're not getting your car back anyway after that.
Who's
Kind
going to
of.
pay for the head gasket? We'll worry about that later. You're never going to see this car again anyway. We're going to lose it in the impound.
So I had an interesting thing happen to me last night,
Okay.
and
Tell.
I wanted to get your opinion on this. I pull up to the Safeway in a local grocery store,
Right.
and I'm sitting in the car. And I forget what there was a song on, and I'm grooving to the song, and I'm tapping the steering wheel,
Right.
and I'm listening to the song, not bothering anybody, getting ready to go into the store to pick up a few things. I had to get Irish soda bread this week, so I had to get my Irish soda bread.
Got to have it.
Gotta have it. You don't get caught without it. And all of a sudden, my door opens. Some guy opens the door. And I look, and I carry a flashlight, one of those big cop flashlights, in my seat. So that if something happens, and right away I grab the flashlight, and he backs up. He says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm, black guy. Well, actually, he wasn't black. He was some kind of Eastern Indian or something like that. Older guy." And he backs up, and in that 2 seconds, I had to realize: do I just hit this guy and knock him down, or what's going on? And he says, "No, I'm sorry. I'm driving a white SUV over there. I thought this was it."
Oh, he walked into what he thought was his car.
Yeah, he was walking into what he thought was his car. I said, "Oh, all right, no harm, no. I mean, scared the living crap out of me."
Yeah.
But I could see where if I had a gun,
Too late.
somebody opens your car like that, and
You
and the last thing I'm doing is looking around. I'm like grooving. I can't remember the song I was grooving to, but I was like, tapping it out on the steering wheel and everything.
It was the sole survivor's expressway to your heart.
I was actually kind of shocked that the guy couldn't hear the radio going. The engine was running. I mean, he must have been in his own world, but it's one of those things where if I had had a gun,
Oh dear.
it might have been a completely different.
Excuse me.
Because you don't know, it took me a second or so, or more than that, a couple of seconds before I realized, and luckily the guy started moving back.
And luckily, you only had a flashlight, which,
And
by the
luckily,
way,
I
is
only
a
had a flashlight
pretty good
because,
weapon when you get one across the chin.
I mean, you just don't know in that case.
And you have a
You know,
choice: the overhand with the right hand, which means you have to reach toward the door, or the backhand with the left hand, which is quicker and shorter.
well,
And
I was pivoted. I mean, I was on the pivot. I immediately grabbed the flashlight and I was on the pivot, and he backed away. If he hadn't been backing away, if he'd have stood there, he'd have gotten it in the chops.
or the cojones.
But the second he started backing up, and I'm surprised I actually acted this fast. The second he started backing up, I was like, okay, something's not, obviously the guy's not trying to grab me. He's backing up, which was probably his smartest move of the night. And sure enough, I looked over there, one row away, and he had a white SUV. I'm driving a Mazda. He was driving a Lexus.
Well,
And,
some product manager in Detroit just went crazy.
And he
He
just
thought we had a Mazda. He confused a Lexus with a Mazda. We
well,
ruined our
Mazda's trying to up their image, so I guess they've succeeded.
I think so. Yesterday on the freeway, we had to do an emergency Tutu and Commodore appearance in Woodland Hills. Saw a baby blue Maserati with yellow highlights. It was like UCLA, made specifically for them.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. My God, what a roaring rocket ship to have this on the 101 freeway. And then right behind it, here comes a purple one, royal purple with gold hubcaps. So it was like the bling Lamborghini.
It's the Maserati Club.
And the guy driving the purple Lamborghini was anxious to get to wherever he was going. And every time he changed lanes, it was like a jet flying over. Beautiful.
So I love about LA, man.
I'll take
you
the
go down
blue
there
one.
and you drive the freeways and it's a car show.
You will see everything. In fact, I've seen the first Bentley SUV, which is something I didn't even know existed. Well, I had one behind me in traffic, of course. That's how you see new cars in LA.
Yeah, I drove the Rolls Royce version of that last year. $450,000.
A pittance when a man needs a certain kind of car.
450 grand for a car. And you know what? After I drove it, I said,
Fairly
I got to
priced.
be honest with you. If I had unlimited funds, I might get one of these for my garage.
Is Rolls Royce and Bentley owned by the same company?
Yeah, it's all owned by Volkswagen, I believe now.
Wow.
It's either Volkswagen or BMW. I forget. I think it's the Volkswagen Group. One of the Germans own Rolls Royce.
And they're okay with their English compatriots making these cars by hand.
Yeah, I mean they still make them in fairly the same way. I think the newer ones have a variant of the BMW engines
Ooh.
in them, or a Volkswagen engine. I forget. But they've pretty much left them autonomous. They've pretty much said, okay, we own you. Pretty much like the Chinese have done with Volvo.
That's not a marriage made in heaven. That's a marriage made in a financial nightmare.
Yeah, that's an interesting. But to their credit, the Chinese Geely, which is the company that bought them, have not really interfered, or at least from the surface, have not interfered that much with their operations. They still make them in much the same way. I suspect that's probably going to change at some point. Um,
Have they accused Volvo of sending information from their onboard computer back to the Chinese headquarters for military
not
decision
yet,
making?
not
It's
yet, but
coming.
it seems it's coming. Um, I mean, how do you trust anything that's made in China not to not to send a signal back or some kind of at least tracking device that says you're but then again, how do they know that every Buick they're driving over there doesn't have a tracking device that's sending information back over to the United States?
Actually, we just send the information to the balloon, and the balloon relays it sometimes overnight, sometimes it takes a couple days.
There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the skies that we don't know about. You
Yeah,
know?
the balloon made it from Canada all the way to North Carolina before we shot it down, doing whatever it was doing. But now we can't even get a drone to go across the Black Sea, which is my favorite Black Sea, the Black Sea.
Well,
There are many seas in the world, but only one Black Sea.
if you want to shoot something down, one of the Chinese balloons down, how do you get upset about the Russians shooting down one of your drones?
International airspace for they
Did
had
we
they
shoot
had
the? Where did we shoot the balloon down? Wasn't it over
U.S.
international? Maybe it was still.
No, right off the coast, and it isn't, if I'm not mistaken, international waters doesn't kick in until 25 miles out to sea, something like that, or
It
250 miles,
it's 12, isn't it? It
12
used to
leagues.
be, or is it 200? I know they changed it at some point.
I think they wanted it a little further out. They said, 12 miles doesn't give us much reaction time. Let's make it 250 miles, and we'll start watching them out there.
Yeah, I can't remember. I'm going to look now to see if I can find the exact.
And some countries say, well, we want more of we want to make decisions based on that being our water. So 250 miles is good, but we need 500 miles if you're off Holland, 500 miles if you're off Madagascar.
Yeah, 12 miles.
Well, in these days, how far would a jet go in 60 seconds? Most of that 12 miles.
12 miles. I mean, it'd be a matter of a couple of seconds. I mean, if you're doing 750 miles an hour, 12 miles is going to be what, 5 seconds? I mean, I'm not I'm not good enough at math to figure that out on the fly, but it's not that far.
How fast was Farmer Resnick going when the chicken crossed the road? Oh, he
Yeah,
was moving. I saw him come out of the hen house. He was moving.
I think we used to be 200 miles though at one time, and then we cut it down for some reason. Maybe there was a treaty signed or something like that. But anyway, World War III is going to start by shooting down something unmanned. That's going to be interesting.
Well, the good part about that is you're probably not exaggerating, except for comedic influence over some people's listening habits. But the whole idea of what's going to happen in terms of the war, it seems like it's going to be petty. Doesn't seem like it's going to really be over Taiwan or really over Afghanistan or really over Ukraine. It seems like we're doing so many stupid petty things instead of important big things, and I'm disappointed that we aren't talking better with the Chinese right now. They're in a very recalcitrant mood. They don't want to hear, they don't want to listen to reason, because I think Z's got enough problems at home with restless young bucks who say he's had it for 3 years. That's enough. That's my turn.
Yeah, but the problem is with the restless young bucks is he has no problem sending in the military to squash them. I mean, he does what Trump wanted to do, with the protesters out in the park outside the White House. Just
Well,
send the
yeah.
military out there but we have some laws against that
Well,
even the president can't disobey.
you're right about that, but he hasn't sent his troops to quell disturbances outside his borders for a long time now. One
Right.
thing that China has done wisely is they have not made enemies via invasion or military operations as we have. We have our military strung out all over the planet, and China right now is considering how strong their army is because they just took a look at what Russia is going through, and Russia can't fight a fair fight. Russia can't get up and hold the city block in Czechoslovakia. They're they're showing themselves to be a weak military force.
Well,
Is that a contradiction in terms?
what the I was just watching a thing last night on Fiat and the Agnelli family and Mussolini. And the one thing that it seems that these dictators, these autocrats, these people that want one person rule of the country always forget to take into account is the people they rule. You
They
know,
don't give a damn.
that they just think that the people are just going to shrug their shoulders and do what they say. And as we have now seen in the Ukraine, they're not going to shrug their shoulders and just do what Putin wants them to do. Putin thought he was going to be there about 15 minutes.
They were going to love him. They were going to all speak Russian and have pictures of him in their dining room.
Yeah. And he's found that to be not the case. And so he has to look for other things to do to take people's attention there off the Ukraine, because there has to be people asking questions. Why did my son go for a vacation to Crimea and not come back?
He's not coming back, Mom. It had to do with his debt that he owed his country, a debt of service.
I would have to think, much as the Americans are, the Russian citizenry is kind of done with the Afghanistans of the world.
You would think so, but they got a whole lineup of vassal states that they would like to create in the image of the Soviet Union.
Oh yeah, I mean that's listen, there's no doubt in anybody's mind that that's Putin's plan. Is he wants to recreate. He thinks Gorbachev was an idiot and capitulated to the West, and he wants to restore. He wants to make Russia great again. Where does that sound familiar?
I wonder if Z in China is looking at the situation and saying, look at the mess he created for himself. We'll never do anything like that. And then he'll look to his generals and say, but if we wanted to, could we do it? Or would we be bogged down like these guys? How do we know
Well,
this without fighting a little bit somewhere? Let's pick somebody. Let's pick a fight with somebody and see if we can actually win one.
it's interesting to see because China is expanding their military footprint outside of China. They feel like the South Pacific is their territory, if you will. I mean, they haven't put a base in New Jersey quite yet. Um,
But
but
Malaysia and Indonesia and all the
yeah, but I mean, that's probably why we're going to send nuclear subs to Australia as a kind of a buffer. Because see, I mean, the thing what I always wonder about is what does China want? They have what they need, right? They have people, they have raw materials, they have enough land to grow food. They pretty much could put a wall around the whole country.
they also have this problem of keeping a leader until somebody can take the job away from him. That their line of succession is not official or written down anywhere. A strong man, it's like the lion that you see on the Animal Planet, old Biff the lion. He's got a limp, but he's always fighting off the young guys. But he
Yeah,
knows that he's not going to have this job forever. Somebody's going to try and take it from him. And when they do, it's not going to be a good day for Biff the lion. Same thing with Z. So there's a level of paranoia that shapes every decision you make because you're trying to self-preserve. And then there's a line of, I'm doing the best for China. But you can't do the best for China without risking your job
yeah,
because they don't have demonstrations in the street that last very long there. And you know that if there's a million people willing to demonstrate against your actions in Shanghai, there's 2 or 3 young bucks in the Communist Party also that you just saw at the big dinner. They were applauding, but that's not what they were thinking.
Right. Well, it's kind of like the mafia, you know. I mean, you're sitting
Yeah,
there and you're running things, but you never know who around that table wants your job, or maybe you do know, and what kind of alliances and what kind of things they're putting together to one day, when you get in your car and turn the key, you know,
you know.
all of a
Then you
sudden you're
know.
taking a flight over the casino. Um,
You can see a lot from up there, but not for very long.
yeah, no, not for very long. No, it's kind of an up and down thing. Uh, and if the blast is strong enough to send you hurtling through the roof of your car, chances are you're not going to remember much after it.
There'll be some damage that goes along with that. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it seems like it runs kind of like that over there. But it was funny because as I was watching this documentary about Mussolini and Fiat, I did come across Mussolini's, um, I don't know if you want to call it a campaign slogan or his tagline or
Which
whatever it
one?
is. But need I tell you what it is?
Make Italy great again.
Make Italy great again.
Which means I have to. If we're going to do it, we need Roma. We need the 10th Legion. If you don't mind, I'll be Caesar for a little while, like for a week.
Well, what Mussolini didn't count on is or didn't foresee is that the average Italian fighter doesn't want to fight. They're lovers, not fighters.
Generations have proven that.
They gave up in World War I. They gave up in World War II. The Italians don't. They're not military. The whole Rome thing was many years ago. They don't remember it. It's like, yeah, we got a Coliseum, and it's nice, and people from all over the world come to see it, and that's great. But we have no desire to go across the Mediterranean and rule some other country, or we have no expansionists. We don't want to expand anything. As a matter of fact, we look down upon you if you buy a cappuccino after 11 o'clock in the morning.
And we had a bit larger empire than we have right now. We had Britain, and then one day we said, "What are we doing? What are we doing in this cold, wet place?
Yeah, why
We're
do we
Roman,
need this stuff? We got beautiful, sunny Italy.
and here we are."
We don't have enough people to fill the whole damn country as it is. Why?
They let the name anyway, Londinium.
Yeah. Why? Let somebody else. And the French pretty much following that same.
Yeah. Why do we have to build the roads? Nobody's got a road except us. And so when we come to town, what do? We build roads. Can't we teach anybody to do it on their own? Look, follow the instructions. Step one, get a shovel. Come on, we're going to make a road. Who's
Yeah.
with me? Nobody.
Well, it's like what do you call it with the autobahn? Hitler with the autobahn. I mean, he said we need a road because we can't get our tanks from A to B if we don't have a road. We can't have them just
Albert
going
Speer,
through
get
the
me a road.
villages.
Build me a road, Albert Speer.
And of course, who followed that edict? Uh, Thought it was one of the greatest ideas was Dwight Eisenhower,
Yeah.
and that's how we got the interstate highway system. The interstate
Yeah.
highway system is built. The first intention of the interstate highway system is not to get you from Minneapolis to Fargo quickly. It is to get tanks or rockets or whatever they want to put in. It's to have a means to move the military to any part of the country that they need to defend it. That's the purpose.
So
Now,
we started talking about Dwight Eisenhower because he was president during the so-called good old days. And we always credit him with the interstate highway because it was his idea, as you say. We also credit him with coming to grips with the military-industrial complex, which he knew better than many, being a four-star general, being the
Right.
hero of World War II, being the Republican candidate for presidency twice. He saw what was happening with how we ginned up the entire military, not to fight World War II style, but to be ready to fight anywhere at all times. And we didn't take us long after World War II to find a good place to fight in Korea.
Yeah, it really. Well, that was. We had to stop communism. I mean, the communists were going to take over South Korea, and and from there as soon as we got out of Korea, we found Vietnam.
It was not that far away. It's just a short drive.
Yeah, we could just move the ships right down the coast, and we get there.
And do they have a charismatic leader that we can't beat? Yes, they do. Oh, they sure do. You're gonna love Ho Chi Minh. Everyone's gonna know his name.
Yep, and he's gonna have a city named after him someday.
Yep.
Um, and
And
so
he means well, but he doesn't forget. He's got a long memory. This guy.
we need we need a war. America needs. It seems like America needs a war to keep things moving.
Well, it depends. Right now, the Democrats are supporting our efforts in the Ukraine, but the Republicans are saying this whole Putin thing has been blown out of proportion. He's a mensch. You don't know anybody nicer than Vladimir Putin. You don't know anybody who cares so much about his people and his country. You don't know. It's as if he's a senator from Missouri, like Josh Hawling. That's the kind of man he impresses me as being a caring, loving, giving person.
Oh yeah,
Who,
yeah. He's a
who,
wonderful
who
gentleman.
he's a
Loves
he's a
loves loves stuffed
humanitarian,
animals and girls. I mean,
not necessarily in that order.
uh, the only thing that Ron DeSantis accomplished yesterday is to show you how stupid he is about foreign affairs. When he said that Ukraine is a territorial thing.
It's a territorial
shouldn't be.
dispute. Yeah.
Yeah, we shouldn't be involved. I suspect that somebody's going to sit him down today and say, if you want to run for this thing, you just keep your yap shut.
One thing he can do is when he gets to Texas, he can talk about how General, I can't think of the general's name. General Santana? No, the Mexican general that fought at the Alamo.
Oh,
Santa Anna.
was it Santana? I
I
can't
think it
remember
was
now.
Santa Anna. Anyway, tell Texas that was just a territorial dispute, and they shouldn't get so up in the air about it. The Mexicans didn't know; they thought it was theirs. The Texans thought it was theirs. An honest mistake was made on both sides. It was good people falling victim to an error in judgment. Just a territorial tiff.
Well, I think DeSantis is going to find out that running America is quite a different thing than running Florida. In Florida, people will fall in line. They will, if you say something, they'll agree with you because what the heck? I got a house by the beach. I got some sand down here. I got some water. As long as it's not hurricane season, I'm good. But I don't know if the rest of the country is going to bite it. And the reason you know that is because the only thing that he seems to be, whenever he opens his mouth about something that's not woke related, he sticks his foot in it. Now, he knows how to use that word woke.
And he's applying it to everything.
Yeah, to get people. And to be fair, I know a lot of liberals that are somewhat dismayed with the whole woke thing. There's a lot of people that are pissed off that Charlie Rose isn't on CBS anymore.
Well, he couldn't keep it in his pants. There's nothing we can
Yeah,
do, Charlie.
but even the liberals have that there's a certain feeling among many liberals, not all. I don't think you can classify it, that the woke thing, the cancel thing, has gone a little too far.
Well, there's 2 points to that existence. There's the reality of what woke is about, which is really just awareness, and then there is the Republican version of it, which means that every decision you make is based on somebody else's ability to cancel your decision. I'm going to get into real estate. It's something I always wanted to do. I wanted to sell houses. Nope, won't be that for you. Our awareness tells us that you should be a CPA. That's it. Yeah, that's what you're going to be, and don't look any further. Our awareness tells us what's good for you, and we know that this whole idea about real estate is not going to pan out for you. So forget your dreams, forget your decision making. Let us put you in another safer position. Awareness is what woke
Yeah,
should
I
be.
mean, I mean, it certainly don't offend anybody. Don't say anything that will insult anybody. Don't call somebody, a name. We've eliminated name calling, even if they're friendly names. I mean, it's funny because, I mean, I'll go back to the Super Bowl when Terry Bradshaw started ripping on Andy Reid. I mean,
Hey,
I got to admit, I was offended.
why not?
I was like, waddle. I mean, because here it is, the greatest moment in the guy's life. I don't know if it's maybe the greatest moment, one of the greatest moments in his life. And you're ribbing him with waddle on over here, and we'll go get you a hamburger, and making fun of his size.
I'm a world champion, Terry. I am a
And
world
maybe I'm
champion.
oversensitive to that, but
No, I think it was. I know he was trying to be friendly or casual, or we're old friends. I'm going to show everybody how long we've been pals. But he chose the wrong phrase, and he didn't treat him like a champion.
right.
And that's something that is required. It's expected of you.
Yeah, he treated him like he was some, I don't know, a water boy or equipment guy in the clubhouse or something
Yeah.
like that. Not that I'm not goofing on equipment guys. What I'm saying is they take a certain level of abuse from people, from players, uh, you know, uh, as a part of, just like the rookie comes in and takes a certain level of abuse from people. It's the way of athletics, I
I got a rookie
guess.
to talk about. Giants have a team that you probably don't know about too well because we don't have a lot of named players, but we lost Evan Longoria at third base. He had been our third baseman for the last 4 or 5 years. And there are a number of guys who are in line to take that position, but they called a kid named Casey Schmidt. Didn't give him a contract. All they gave him was an invite with no promises to spring training to play third and see what happens. So far, he's hit a triple and a home run in his last 2 at-bats. And watch out for Casey Schmidt because we need a third baseman. He is a third baseman, but no one told him that his chances were bupkis. And all he's doing is hitting the damn ball with the damn bat. And you know my rule: if you can't hit the ball, we'll find someone who can. And one guy
Well,
who looks like he can
I
is
like
Casey
stories
Schmidt.
like that.
I do too. I love stories like that.
I think those are. We have a guy. The name is probably familiar to you, Jared Kelnick.
Yeah.
Uh, he's a guy that's for whatever reason is a late bloomer. I like he came over in the Edwin Diaz trade, and many Met fans said, well, they'll rue the day that they traded Kelnick because he's going to be a superstar, but he hasn't really. He hasn't realized his potential yet.
Right.
And he's hitting something like, last I looked, I think he was hitting like 420 in spring training, had a ton of home runs, and it looks like this may be the year that he realizes his potential, which will
Now's
make
the
me
time.
very happy because I'm a fan of the guys. It's like, my friend the quarterback, Pickett, in Pittsburgh. Sometimes you latch on to a player
He becomes your guy.
and he becomes your guy. And Pickett, for football is my guy. I think that I think he's going to be a star. He's just got to, he's just got to get his legs under him, if you will.
You got to be hitting that big boy pitching, but once you get that done, that's the hardest transition to make.
But I think Kelnick will be a star, and the people that want to get rid of him, want to trade him, want to blow him out, will have to eat their words.
What position does he play?
Huh?
What position?
He's an outfielder. I think you see him more in left than anywhere else. I think he can play a little bit of the infield too. I think he might be able to play corner positions.
Yeah. That's turning out to be more and more of a strong suit. The idea of a utility man was like a weakness. Not anymore.
No, I think the more versatile you can be, I've always thought this. I mean, I remember back to the days when you used to see outfielder, first baseman,
right?
Or the more popular one on the baseball card was catcher, third baseman. I mean, there was a bunch of guys that were catcher who would catch, but they also would play third base or first base. Yogi Berra was one. Tim McCarver, Joe Torre. Are guys that I can think of just off the top of my head that were catcher, first baseman, or catcher, third baseman.
That happens when your catcher hits better than 220. Giants always had a catcher that would hit like Kobe Landreth, 216 all year long, no problem. But if you can bring that bat and you're a 300 hitter, they're going to rush you from catcher. They got to find a place to put you. Third base, left field, get them on the field, first base.
Oh yeah, if you it's funny. I always thought that Piazza's career would have been extended if he didn't want to do anything but catch. I always thought that it was a little crazy. He should have gone out and played first base.
Absolutely.
And probably would have extended his career for a few years.
And bettered his numbers. Wouldn't have those tired legs.
That's coming back into vogue now, is to have people that can play multiple positions so that you have more flexibility with your lineup.
And you can do the double switch, which I like.
Yeah.
What's he doing? He's bringing this guy to that and this guy to that. What's he planning for next week? I don't know. I like a double switch.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see that that along. I mean, it's going to be weird watching baseball this year. I'm not going to like the pitch. I don't like the pitch clock to begin with.
No.
I don't, and you're going to stick it right in my face, and I'm just not a fan of it, and so It'll
be awful to have a tense situation decided by a pitch clock violation.
Yeah, I had one the other night. Some guy, I don't know, hit a foul ball or something. He stepped out of the box and, took a minute. I don't know what it was that he was doing, but he took a minute and he didn't get the memo or something, I guess, because he stood outside the box. The pitch clock ran down. The umpire looked at him and called strike 3.
Goodbye.
He didn't even have to swing the bat. That'll teach you not to take more than 14 seconds to recuperate.
I hope it does. If you need 30 seconds to recuperate from a foul ball.
I don't like things being decided in baseball by the inaction or by no action at all. I don't like part of the beauty of baseball is you have to earn what you do. It's why I never liked the whole football thing, where you had penalties and you had to go a yard, 2 yards, or 3, whatever it is, 5 yards, 10 yards, because you're not earning that yardage. You're doing it because the other guy made a mistake. And in baseball, if the other guy makes a mistake, you still have to earn your base. You still have to run there. You still have to get in. Say if a guy out in the outfield drops the ball, you don't automatically just go to first. You
No,
can
you know you should have been on second, so you're caught halfway.
right, but there's still the chance to make an error, but make up for your error.
Right.
There's still a chance, if you are the person who didn't commit the error, you still can be thrown out. They don't just automatically say go to second base. The only time they do that is when there's a fan interference and the
Balk.
guy, the umpire thinks, well, if the fan didn't touch the ball, he would have gotten a third, so he awards him third base. But that's really one of the few instances where you advance with nothing happening. And people say,
But
well,
nothing is based on the time clock like it is in football with the play clock.
right.
And they gave him 30 seconds. So they're giving the football guy longer than they do the baseball guy to make up his mind about what pitch he's going to be pitching or what pitch he's going to be hitting.
Yeah, it's just, listen, I know the game has to, I know people want the game to change. I'm not a big fan of change. I like the game the way it was in the 60s.
Yeah.
I think that was the 60s and the 70s were maybe the best we'd ever seen baseball. It certainly hooked me in. I like the idea, you know me. I mean, I'm a traditionalist. I like the idea of the pitcher hitting. I like the idea of guys having to earn their bases. I like the idea there shouldn't be a clock. Matter of fact, I liked it when the American League had the rule, if you remember, where you had to stop playing at midnight.
Really?
Yeah, they had a limit
blue
on
law.
the
A blue
time.
law. Yeah.
In the American League, you had to stop playing. They had a curfew. You had to stop playing at midnight. Whereas in the National League, you could play until 6 o'clock in the morning. You played until somebody won.
Funny thing about those laws, they just say if you're up at midnight, you're either doing something wrong or you're having a wonderful time. We can't stomach either one of those things in our town. If you're up at midnight, you should be miserable as the rest of us. Nobody having a good time, nobody causing a ruckus, nobody having fun, nobody drinking beer. Nobody. We got rules. We got rules of how to behave yourself in this town. Schenectady didn't become great because people were up at midnight drinking beer. We got to put some
Well, and I think that's
brakes
exactly
on this.
what made Schenectady great. And Miller will tell you that's what made Milwaukee famous.
That there should be a song there. In fact, the song that I made a note for was "Good Old Days," a song about the good old days, where we examine them and see how good they actually were.
These are the good old days. The Carly Simon.
Oh,
I mean, I
Carly.
know it's not the song you're thinking of, but
No, that's good.
that's in anticipation, right? Where she tells us that these are the good old days. Carly's always telling us something, isn't she?
She's a storyteller. Remember, a
She's
family of
telling us
publishers.
that you're so vain. She's telling us that these are the good old days, so enjoy them while you got them.
She's saying you don't know James Taylor like I know James Taylor.
Yeah, and Carly's always got a. She's always got a song going.
Is she still with us?
Carly? Yeah, her sister, I think, just passed away,
not
Lucy.
right. Well, I'd like to see her come on somebody's show, go on Stephen Colbert with a trio and regale us with a couple tunes.
Yeah, I like. Well, she's doing. There's a ton of her on YouTube. I think she did a concert tour, maybe last year, or a couple of years before. But there's some fairly recent Carly Simon stuff on. I'd love to see her get together with James Taylor.
That would be awkward.
After all these years, you think it'd still be awkward?
I don't know. Probably not. They have kids together, so they have to see each other.
Yeah, they'd probably talk to each other. So, but yeah, I always thought that would be a kind of a cool
Reunion.
couple of people. Yeah, I'm a sucker for reunions.
And
I
Carly's
like to
saying
see
under her breath,
people,
you're always hanging out with that Carole King. You guys are always kissing and hugging and saying what a great friends you are. That just drives me bananas. Oh, are we on?
Send Neil Sedaka and Carole King out on the road together.
There you go.
You
And
know,
I want
only
that
if they
piano.
do O'Neill and O'Carroll.
to the damn piano before the show. We got two piano players out there that need a tuned piano.
Yeah, yeah. Give me a couple of tuned baby grands, and charge me $50 a ticket, and I'll be a happy camper. I'll go watch that.
We're about ready to shut down the Wacky Wednesday broadcast. Mikey and Vinnie are here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at this time. But I wanted to keep something going in the news that I just saw today. I searched UFO new, what new UFO reports were new. And I find that yesterday, a spokesman for the United States Pentagon said he wasn't predicting this, but he said it would be possible for a mothership to be orbiting somewhere in our solar system where we couldn't see it and send little units to visit the planets and do their work there. He said, not that that's happening, but it would be possible. And one way to get it done would be mothership in the solar system, smaller units that come and visit the planets. But of course, that would never happen here. I mean, imagine something flying through the sky from a mothership and visiting Earth without the military doing something about it.
Well, I just saw a few nights ago. I watched the first episode of The Outer Limits. Remember The Outer Limits?
I do.
No, that's the Twilight Zone. Outer Limits is we have taken control of your television set. Do not.
We don't have a snappy intro, but we have taken control.
They didn't have a. I mean, the taking control of your. It was much more visual than it was a theme that everybody would remember for the rest of our lives. What was I? Oh yeah, but the first episode was about a guy that runs a radio station, and he goes kind of wacky because he's getting signals from outer space.
You got to put the tinfoil hat.
Yeah, and the signal from outer space materializes itself as a force, like a human, not human shape, but a monster shaped force field. And this
that happens in radio. That happens in radio a lot.
Yeah. Especially if you've done the right amount of acid before you go to work.
Seemed like a good idea at the time. A little more to relax.
Yeah, it's just I just played longer records all night. How many times can you listen to MacArthur Park in one night?
On acid, maybe half a playback. Yeah.
You keep going. You do everybody's version of it. When you get down to the Carol Burnett version of MacArthur Park, you know that
you've gone far enough.
You know you're in trouble. So anyway, this electronic being comes in and goes into the town, and this guy is getting an award for like Citizen of the Year at some banquet in this small California coastal town, and the force field shows up there.
And there goes my presentation. I was going to get a nice gold plate, and now look at the mess I'm in.
Yeah. And evidently, well, they shoot at it as,
of course,
as they always do in these 50s and 60s movies. But of course, the bullets do no harm to this thing. It's not, bullets aren't going to harm a force field. But instead of killing it, they send it back to its. The guy gets it to go back to the transmitter and puts it in the thing and gets the frequency right. And the whole thing is caused by a substitute DJ who the owner of the radio station had the power turned low so that it would accommodate that frequency and not, overpower it or anything.
Right.
Well, this guy comes in and he sits down and he says, "Yeah, man, I'm working at this radio station tonight." And the engineer says to him, "Well, boy, if the power was turned up, you'd be able to hear this thing all over the West Coast, from Canada down to Mexico." So this guy's in there grooving, and he looks at the, it tells him, "Whatever you do, don't turn that switch up."
Too late.
Sure enough, groovy Greg he's snapping his fingers. And he says, "Man, I want to be heard in Canada tonight, baby." And he cranks the thing up, and boom, the force field comes
Groovy
out,
Greg.
and and Greg gets toasted by the force field.
Oh yeah, that'll happen.
Greg causes his own death.
He had a great book though. When
Yeah, his ratings were #1 that night. They heard him in Canada. I
hour
think
by hour,
they heard his last word. Ah!
Groovy Greg.
Groovy Greg, baby, on, what was it? KVIXX. I don't know why they used 5 letters in the call letters, but they did.
They have 5-letter calls in Mexico.
Maybe that's what this was. Where this was.
It start with X.
Yeah, no, but it started with K. It was KVIXX, I think. Anyway, it was an interesting.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think the comeback of the show is like? Isn't it debuting a new? Is that the old?
Oh, it's the old ones. No,
Oh, I'm
the old
sorry.
ones. I don't think.
I thought it was new ones.
Yeah, I don't think. I don't know. You know, that's interesting. That would be a series that would be ripe for a reboot.
Right.
I mean, if they can reboot Night Court, why not reboot The Outer Limits?
Well, what I was wondering is why this general from the Pentagon, the spokesperson, isn't in the headlines all over the world, because every time you ask the Pentagon about UFOs or extraterrestrials or objects in the sky, they're quick to deny the existence of them. They have an alternate explanation that seems hackneyed and barely put together that they use to try to explain what they're all about. And now they're casually discussing the mothership and where it might be to provide us with small little units like the Tic Tacs that visit our planet on a regular basis. And nobody said anything about it. This was in the news yesterday from the Pentagon, and it got completely washed over. You know who covered it?
Who?
Fox.
Well, yeah, of course, because they wouldn't want to cover the war in Ukraine, or they wouldn't want to cover the, Biden and his gun control.
No, what can we do that's not news that'll take us the whole afternoon? Take me up to Tucker in Spopakia. Well, we can do the
if there
UFO
was a
story.
God in heaven, the aliens would come and take Tucker.
But I don't want him to die quickly.
I don't say you got to kill him. Just take him. You don't have to kill him.
Just take him somewhere.
Take him somewhere else.
We've already talked
about.
about
With that crap on Mars, pal.
Or even in Schenectady. You have to watch your step in that town.
I think you'd get away with it in Schenectady. Troy, I'm not so sure, but Schenectady.
Troy's a nifty town. Hard to predict.
Yeah, it's that Schenectady Troy Metro that you have to look out for.
And also the Schenectady Triangle, where so many planes have been lost over the years. So many dreams have gone down the pipe.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because there is a town on the New York-Pennsylvania border that had 2 plane crashes within a month of each other.
You mean big planes?
Yeah, like one of the larger commuter planes. The place is Bradford, Pennsylvania, and it's right on the New York, Pennsylvania border in Western New York. And I think it was 1950. One was Christmas 1958, and then like 8 days later,
wow.
Same airport, same runway, another plane crashed in the same place. Both with unrelated causes, but yet I don't know. I wouldn't have flown into that airport. I actually went there to look and see, to kind of, it just sounded so weird to me. It was so fascinating to me that 2 planes would crash in the same place a month apart from each other.
Seemingly just falling out of the sky.
Yeah, that I actually had to go and like kind of, I went to the airport and checked it out, and in the woods where the plane, it was a very eerie place. It was a very strange encounter. You could You went there and you could feel that something was freaky there.
Now in Erie, the Erie that we all know and love in New York and Pennsylvania, do they have a special feeling about their town being kind of weird too, or is this a different Erie that you're talking about?
Well, it's not all that far from Erie. Um, Bradford, I believe, is where the Zippo Lighter Company
Ooh,
is located, or near there, not too far from Bradford. Erie, Pennsylvania, is right on the shore of the lake up there. It's just in that little strip of Pennsylvania that wedges itself up between New York and Ohio.
so
It's
if you get
not
a piece,
very.
get a piece of the Great Lakes.
Yeah, they just get a small piece. I don't think it's 50 miles wide. Um,
What do they call that little stick-up thing? The Panhandle?
no, it's just the lake shore, I guess. It's I'm trying to think. There is a name for it because there's a lot of wineries up there. The land is, I guess, fertile for grapes,
Must be.
and so there's actually wine tours that go up through there through that part of New York, and then you wind up in Chautauqua, that far up, which is always a good place to wind up. But Erie and Presque Island up there is kind of a cool. It's kind of a cool little spot. Erie is a town that has seen better days.
They need to visit
Uh,
from the mothership.
yeah, but it's a prime spot. You're right. I would think that if if you were an alien and you wanted to land somewhere, that Erie would be exactly the kind of place that you would want to land.
Would not want to land?
Would want to land. Yeah, no, I think
Wouldn't.
that Erie because it's got water, it's got a little kind of peninsula thing that sticks out, Presque Isle. Um, it's There's just a bunch of little towns. Erie is probably the biggest city around it. You have freeway access with 90 and 79 and 86.
Oh, freeway access.
So there's plenty of freeway access. But again, it's really close to the lake, and then you also have the State University of New York at Fredonia,
No.
which is a famous country from a Marx Brothers movie.
Now, Fredonia
Hail
doesn't exist,
Fredonia!
doesn't exist anymore, but there was a time when Slovakia and Fredonia were buddies.
We're friends.
They were friends. They were allies.
We're allies. And you have the great town of Casadaga, New York, which is
Casadaga.
home to Lilydale, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with Lilydale, but
Is that a home for the slow?
no, no. Lilydale is a community of psychics and
Sensitives.
yeah, and it's a place
Mediums.
where it's like an old a spiritual community, shall we
Yeah,
say?
yeah, yeah.
Like a spiritual amusement park, really, because you go there and there's just a whole bunch of stuff going on there. There's seminars and bookstores, and there's a hotel. You can stay there. There's a lot of psychics actually go and live there.
I think we need somebody from that community to take a look into space, do some remote viewing, and tell me where the mothership is. If the Pentagon's telling us that it exists, and they did, I'd like to know where.
Yeah,
Where
I'd
it is
like
right
to,
now.
but I
wanna
think
know where
if it were to come to decide that what the world really needs up here is a little bit of us landing and talking to people, I think that Erie would be Erie, Pennsylvania would be a great place because you're close to New York, you're close to Ohio, you're not far from Cleveland, um, and Erie could use a boost.
And to be fair, the aliens that are living amongst us and commuting from the mothership to Earth whenever they feel like it have not had a chance to tell their story. We don't know why they're here. We don't know what they think of us. We don't know how advanced they are. We don't know where their home culture is. We don't know where their planet is. We don't know how many places they work with on a weekly basis, how many solar systems they visit, and what their job is to do. And how come they don't announce themselves? We have to find out why. We have to hear from a general in the Pentagon that they've had a mothership in our solar system all this time, and we didn't even see it.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're exactly right.
I
You
want some
have to,
answers.
and I think the other good thing about this place, which would make it attractive to aliens, is it is the home of the National Comedy Center at Jamestown and the birthplace of Lucille Ball.
Oh, really? I didn't know she was a New Yorker.
Yeah, she was born in Jamestown, New York. There's a park and a statue and everything dedicated to Lucille Ball. And there's also the Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz Bridge.
Does she do any splaining if you go to the shop?
I think Ricky does the splaining. I think he's the guy that does the splaining. But yeah, right on Route 86 there is the Lucy and Desi Bridge. And I think if aliens are going to land, this is a place.
You know who lives under the bridge?
The troll.
Little Ricky.
You think so?
He didn't get treated that fairly.
No.
He has a lot of regrets about his career. Yeah, I think he lives under the bridge.
It seemed like Lucy got all of the little Lucy got all of the harmony, all of the note in that family, and little Ricky got not much of anything, did he?
No, not even a T-shirt. He didn't get a trip in the mothership. That would have been nice, like for dignitaries.
Mikey, I hope they're right about this mothership. I hope that they are. I hope that they are 100% right about it because I would love to see. I would love to be alive when the mothership lands, except if it's intent on destroying us all because it sees us as a threat.
Well, they come to town, they have a press conference, and Ron DeSantis comes up in the middle of it and said, "We're not having any of this. We're not having any woke aliens coming to town and telling us how to live." Okay, they have a few scientists that know more than we know. That's just the luck of the draw. Floridians are not going to be putting up with any aliens. It's an alien-free zone. And then in the middle of his speech, darn if there wasn't a blue light, just went, and that was the end of Ron DeSantis. If it had only had happened earlier, it would have saved us a lot of pain and suffering.
Can he get a suit that fits? Can we get him?
Pink.
Can we chip in and buy him a suit that fits?
It's the Jimmy Hoffa off the rack look. He can't. His suits will not fit, especially at the back of the collar. And another
Robert
thing, this
Hall
guy,
would be embarrassed
because he wears both pair of pants at the same time.
at the same time, which is a new Republican thing. They don't want to follow the Mormons with the underwear.
Secret
So
magic underwear.
right, the magic underwear. So they've decided that instead of that, we'll just wear both. You know, when you buy a suit with two pairs of pants, you have to wear both pairs of pants at the same time.
Do you have to wear them as pants, or can you wear the second pair of pants on your head like a headdress?
Doesn't look good. Makes it hard to be heard.
Well, you do want to be heard if you're speaking to beings from another planet, especially if you're on the planet. I'm going to say this, I'm only going to say it once, and the UFO guy interrupts me and says, "Pardon me, but we understand you went to Harvard. Wasn't that a good school at one time?"
Oh my God! All right, what do you say we hook up Friday morning?
It'll be freaky, it'll be fraudulent, it'll be funalicious, and it'll be fractious.
What's the over and under on banks failing by the
I
time
think
we
I
get
think,
together on Friday?
I think we're done with that. I think but it just goes to show you that the people who are in charge of money, Can you imagine having a bank with $40 billion in it, and they're taking it all out in one day, and you think you're the king of the, and that's the day that the executives for that branch of Silicon Valley Bank received their bonuses.
Yeah.
They paid their bonuses before they closed for business.
Well, now they're investigating because they think that some of the people at the bank knew what was going to happen and they sold their stock.
Oh yeah, they knew.
Yeah, it's kind of hard not to know.
They saw themselves via their own decision making circling the drain. The financial drain is unforgiving because everything's got to add up. It's got to add up at the end of the day. And these guys don't. These guys have their own sort of super math where nothing
Did
adds
anybody
up.
tell them that that they have ways of checking these things? I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
How many criminals believe they're bulletproof? Otherwise,
Everyone, I believe.
They wouldn't do a freeway chase at 35 miles an hour if they didn't think they were bulletproof.
Everyone. All right, man. I'll see you Friday if the Lord's willing the creek don't rise.
Love you, Vinny. Have a good day, and we'll talk soon.
Love
Friday
you too, brother. Take care. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to us. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell thing so you'll be notified when we are back. Although, if you come to this place where you're watching the show at 10:10 on Friday morning, chances are you'll see the two of us sitting here.
Chances are good.
Chances are, though I wear a silly grin.
The mothership will come today. Take all my
right, Mikey.
away.
Take care of yourself.
See ya.